Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back to Paris History Avec Hemingway. I'm here with Claudine, and we are bringing you some more lovely women in French history. And today we are talking about Nélie Jacquemart. And you may recognize that name from a popular museum in Paris, but Claudine is going to tell us a lot more about her. So I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Yeah, this museum that's in Paris is absolutely beautiful, and we'll talk about that too. We'll leave it in suspense to see if you can figure out. I mean, it is kind of her name, but that's all.
I like suspense.
Yeah, so Nélie Jacquemart was born in Paris in 1841. Her full name was really Cornélie Barbe Hyacinthe Jacquemart. So
that's a long name.
Yeah. So she definitely cut it down there a little bit, as most of them did back then. She was born in Paris. Her father worked for Alphée Rose de Vatry, and he was a very rich gentleman. He died shortly after she was born. And her mother and Nélie and her siblings had stayed with this family that was extremely wealthy and kind of took care of them. And when they came, they were in Paris and they lived with them in this really beautiful house. It's over on the Rue de Londres, and it's now Google's headquarters.
Oh, I've been there. I did a photo shoot there. So that's where they used to live.
That's where they used to live.
Oh, crazy. That building's wild.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it has this, fantastic entrance and everything, like the perfect Parisian dream that you could think of.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. I mean, it's not cool that her dad died, but it's cool she got to live in that amazing house.
So the lady of the house, her name was incredibly long, but we'll just call her Rose Emilie. And she took a very devoted liking to Nélie, and she didn't have any children of her own. And so, they were staying at this house and they were helping them out. And Rose, was basically, treating Nélie like, this little adoptive daughter, even though her mother was there. Nothing like weird. Like she didn't, kidnap her and run off and change her name.
As often happened in those days.
It often happens, yes. Or they, sell their children. That's always a lovely one too.
Mm-hmm.
But she also had this a chateau that was basically in an old abbey outside of Paris. So they had the Paris residence, and then they had this abbey that was 40 kilometers north of Paris. And it was the Abbey de Chely. And so she would go there with this family, like they would all go there and spend a ton of time. Nélie at that time she started to draw. And Rose encouraged her to do all these things and kind of showed her this, her mother, Nellie's mother, wasn't that she was like, they were super poor and, begging for, biscuits on the street. But, Rose just showed her like this is culture and art, and because they had a lot of that too. They were collectors and, very wealthy. So she, encouraged her to draw and even helped and to enroll her in a workshop by Léon Cogniet, who was one of the few artists that were actually teaching women how to paint.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because back then you weren't really allowed to do anything besides make babies.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't go to most of the time you couldn't go to the art schools, or like the École des Beaux-Arts would allow like 2 women like a year.
Wow.
Something like that. And you basically, it was the Royal Academy. So you basically had to be approved by by the king. When we talked about Vigée Lebrun, she, was able to end up getting in there because she was the painter for Marie Antoinette, and Marie talked to Louis, and Louis got her in.
Well, I mean, or you got naked and modeled and learned how to paint from being naked all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you were just the naked model, but you couldn't go there to actually learn anything.
Yeah, exactly. You just had to learn other ways.
Yeah. But Cogniet was a neoclassical and romantic painter. He palled around with my favorite Delacroix and Géricault and Ari Scheffer, who, of course, is the, Musée de la Vie Romantique. That was his former home. But he had also painted a portrait of Veuve Clicquot. And this was a portrait. We did a podcast episode about, of course, Veuve Clicquot, and then also of her great-granddaughter, Anne de Rochechouart. And that was a painting that Cogniet did is of Madame Clicquot and her great-granddaughter.
Oh, wow. It's all connected.
It's all connected with the chateau on the hill and everything. So that's always fun when we get to connect all of these people together.
It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
It is. Yeah, 6 degrees of La Vie Creative. But in 1858, at a societal funeral of all things, it was Malik Kashwan, who was the Queen of Oud, that she died. I had never heard of that person before, but nope. she had died, and it was like the thing to be at. Like it was the societal function of like the year was to go to this funeral.
What?
Yeah, very strange. So Nellie went, and she was sketching people that were there. Like she had gone to the funeral, and she stood there kind of, in the shadows and was sketching all these people. Well, somebody that worked for it was L'Illustration newspaper saw that she was there and saw that she was sketching and walked up to her to go see what she was doing. And he liked it so much that he bought some of them and published them in this weekly newspaper.
It's timing meets chance or whatever,
Exactly. So she, it was like, that was a huge thing again for a woman to be published and under her name. That's even a bigger one. Like a lot of times you could be published, but you'd have to, like most of the people that were writers, the women writers couldn't, even into like the 1920s and 30s could not be published under their name.
It's just so insane. Yeah. It's like lucky lady to be her name.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. So that was in January of 1858. And so it was, a huge stroke of luck for her. 2 years later, in 1860, she displayed 3 paintings at an exhibit in Versailles. And 3 years later, she had also put some of her paintings in the Salon, which, in 1863, that is when all of the Paris art world was like being shaken up because the Salon was refusing these paintings by these, crazy newcomers, the Impressionists. And so, but she was classically trained. So her stuff was more classic, neoclassical. So she, they still liked her paintings because they weren't, this cutting edge, crazy guys.
Yeah, they weren't being wild like the rest of those crazy impressionists.
Painting outside and just, craziness. But she was brought into that and they accepted her. And so she had her, basically at that time, we've talked about this many times with the different people. That was the way for artists to get their work seen, to get it purchased. Like this is when the, state would buy these big paintings to put into the public spaces. Collectors would come and purchase it. So it was really the only way for them to get noticed and to make money.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm still just like thinking about the fact that she was drawing at a funeral and that's how she got a big break.
I know you never know.
Market funeral photography.
Yeah. So if there's any budding artists, just go hang out at your nearest nearby cemetery.
Oh God.
You just start sketching. Maybe I think that only happens in Paris.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. But she mostly at that time was painting portraits. And she was wildly praised because she had this delicate touch with her subjects, which I think, like Vigée Lebrun, these women had they just had a different way of depicting their subjects, I think, because they were women themselves, and especially when they were painting, they just had this softer touch. And I mean, the male artists, of course, did beautiful, beautiful pieces, but sometimes the women just kind of knew a little bit more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And they didn't get credit, or no one really knew about it.
No. But at this time, she really started to get noticed even more. And she was actually commissioned to paint some paintings for the churches of Paris.
That's huge. I mean, I really thought only men could do that.
Yeah. I mean, this is 1863. So this is, pretty amazing. And you can still find them. So when I am back there shortly, I am already on my list to go to these churches that I haven't been to before, to go and see her paintings. But there's some at the Notre Dame de Clinico. It's right by your house.
Oh, Clignancourt.
Yeah, Clignancourt. And Saint-Jacques de
Clignancourt.
Yeah. So she has them in two of those different churches in Paris. But she traveled to Rome in 1867 and began to study at the Atelier of Ernest Hébert. Another thing that a lot of women didn't get to do. But when she returned, she moved into the home at 19 Rue Victor Massé, which is the same street that Degas and Van Gogh had once lived.
That's so cool.
I know, so cool. But she was able to basically at that point, that early, and as a woman, live off of the money she made from painting.
That's insane. Most artists can't even make living off that money now.
I mean, basically, all the people we've talked about, Rose Bonheur, George Sand, Nellie. I mean, these are like the only ones that really were able to live off of the money of their craft.
That's insane, especially for that time period, being women, painting things that maybe weren't even allowed to be painted. It's fascinating.
Yeah, so cool. But in 1872, she was contacted by a gentleman named Edouard André to paint a portrait of him.
Did they fall in love?
Well, no, spoiler alert. We'll get to it. not so much. But Edward, you might know because of that last name now. You might be figuring out this museum in Paris. But Edward had been a student at the military school at Saint-Cyr. The school originally opened as a school for girls by Madame Maintenon, which we have talked about too, and Louis XIV. Later, it was turned into a military school by Napoleon. He became an officer and was named to a group that was sole intent was to protect Napoleon III.
Wow. So he just was protecting old Napoleon.
Yeah, especially since, Napoleon III was like, he was almost killed going to the opera. I think he definitely needed some protection.
Well, he had it from good old Jacques.
Yes, he did. So, but he decided in 1884 that he didn't want to do that anymore. And he shifted to take his father's seat in the National Assembly. He came from a very wealthy banking family, and they made a ton of money in banking. They were involved with later helping negotiate the money that was paid to the Germans at the end of the war.
What?
Yeah. So it was, that was another thing in a book I recently read that was all about the Jewish families and collectors, the Commodore, the Rothschilds, all of these, and it mentions him in the book, and about how they had, paid, he was involved, the family was involved with paying off the Germans.
Wait, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating history.
Yeah, apparently at the end of the war, they had to basically pay the Germans a certain amount of money. France did.
Why? To make them go away?
I don't know. I've got to look into more of this.
This could be a whole episode.
I know. But he had been previously married. His wife, Louis Mathilde Cotter, died when she, and they didn't have any children. So Edward began collecting art and wanted a huge house to be built in Paris. And at this time, Mr. Baron Haussmann began cutting his way through Paris, creating these grand boulevards and new neighborhoods were popping up all over the place. And Edward had architect Henri Parent build him a mansion on Boulevard Haussmann.
As one does.
As one does. Yeah. I mean, we're just about ready to do that.
Counting my nickels.
Yep, exactly. But Henri Parent had been the runner-up to Charles Garnier to create the Opera House. So this guy was pretty good.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. So they had this big house built from 1869 to 1876. When it was finished, it was completed with the winter garden. I'm sure you've been inside here. It is the Musée Jacquemart André. It has a winter garden in there and this beautiful, amazing staircase that was done by Charles Garnier.
Well, next time I go, I'm just going to listen to our podcast so it can be like my little headset as I'm touring the museum.
Yeah. And Charles Garnier did that. I mean, he did the opera. He also did, which we just showed on a few weeks ago, our live walk through Paris. We went to the Jardin de Luxembourg. He did the carousel that's in the Jardin de Luxembourg, and it's the oldest carousel in Paris.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, that's so cool.
And it's not at all fancy like you would think it is because of what he did to the opera. It's rather plain compared to the other carousels you see in Paris.
It's not exciting.
You know, he had quite the range, I guess.
Let's not put him pigeonhole him.
No, operas, carousels, staircases. But it's a stunning, that staircase is absolutely amazing. It's like double staircase. When he began collecting, he mostly focused on books and paintings. And after his everything was completely finished, he met Nélie, and she came and painted this portrait of him. She, at the age of 40, he was now 48 years old in 1881. So this is years after they do this painting. They stopped. They didn't, she was just hired to do this painting and went on with her life. Mm-hmm. In 1881, he was 48, and he was getting sick. He was suffering. He had suffered from, what's a disease of that entire time of everybody we talk about? Syphilis.
Yes, for syphilis.
Yep, syphilis. If it wasn't what's the tuberculosis, it was syphilis. One of those two were going to get you. So on January 29th, 1881, they got married.
Wait, what?
Nélie and Edward got married.
But why? He should just painted her.
Yeah, basically because his family kind of got involved because he didn't have any heirs, and he was, so old at 48 years old. And
real old.
I know. So, and he wasn't in the best shape. They thought, somebody needs to kind of be there to be with him, and to be a companion for him. So they kind of helped push her into marrying him. Of course, it wasn't like this big, huge love affair, which is funny because that's what the museum pushes. But that's not the truth at all.
I don't say, oh, he just got syphilis and needed a marriage.
No, yeah, they definitely don't say in 1881, suffering from syphilis.
Wow. Well, that's a whole other
that would marry him and maybe actually sleep with him, even though he has syphilis.
Wait, but she couldn't have slept with him because then she would have died too, right?
Yeah, I don't think she did because she didn't have syphilis.
Yay!
Yeah, but they were very different. He was a Bonapartist, and she was like a Catholic and he was a Protestant. So, it was definitely a very much of an arranged marriage.
Interesting. So how long did he live after that?
Not a whole lot longer. So the next year she invited him to travel with her to Italy, where she was going to attend auctions and art dealers, because at this point she started really collecting. And then now, she has this influx of, his money and what he enjoyed art and collecting. And so they would travel all over. They'd go to the Near East and Italy and around Europe and just be buying and collecting art. They had gone down to in Italy. They went to buy this huge painting of the Tiepolo fresco, which is it's over the staircase the Winter by Garnier. It's this huge fresco, this painting up there. It is about the landing of Henry III when he's arriving at the Villa Cantori. And they were purchasing this. I mean, this wasn't like, Napoleon looting. They were there and they purchased it. But then they tried to, the Italians tried to stop it from being sold and leaving Italy.
Rude,
but obviously it did, because we see it today at the museum.
Wow. But even with them paying like full price, the Italians were like, no, you can't take that.
Yeah. They definitely, over time, they started to figure out, like when we talked about Venus de Milo and Winged Victory and stuff, like at that time, they were just, these countries were just like, sure, we'll sell it. And then over time, they started to realize what they had. And then they were just like, oh, wait a minute. And even now, there's countries that come after museums and countries of like, we want this stuff back.
Egypt, man. Egypt's like, give my stuff back.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it, like the stuff that in the Louvre, all the Egyptian stuff, when Champollion went down to Italy and he bought these collections from people that also had purchased the collections. I mean, it's all very, legal. But sometimes some people go into the museums and think this all needs to go back to Egypt. And it's like, well, I think it'd be a pretty sad world if all of a sudden the only things you had in museums were things from that one country.
Yeah. It needs to be mixed up, and they do send things and share things and whatever.
Yeah, they definitely do. Italy, though, is kind of weird because they were kind of weird about, even during the Da Vinci exhibit at the Louvre, they were being kind of pissy about even loaning it. They wouldn't loan anything. They weren't going to send some stuff because they're still mad about the Mona Lisa.
They want it back.
Yeah, and then that other one, the Salvador Mundi, which is, people say was done by Da Vinci, but some art experts are thinking that it wasn't. That was one that was purchased at auction a few years ago for like an ungodly amount of money. Well, the people that owned it said they would only send it to the Louvre if they hung it next to Mona Lisa.
Oh, that's so funny.
And the Louvre is like, we don't even think that's a real Da Vinci.
So, talk about petty.
Yeah. It gets kind of, it's really interesting to see once you start looking into the stuff behind all of these exhibits and things like that. It's kind of funny. But she ended up, they purchased this huge piece and it came back to the Louvre, of course, or came back to their house, and they would go to these auctions in Paris, and they were so fine-tuned into what they wanted in the art that there was times that they got into bidding wars with the Louvre itself and won.
What? That's insane.
Yeah. So they were actually purchasing things that, the Louvre wanted for its own collection. She definitely had a much more refined taste. She taught him a lot about the art. So when you go into the museum, the museum is mostly, you could look at that as a reflection more on her.
It should be named Nellie.
Yeah.
The Nellie Museum.
It is. Well, it is Jacquemart André, and she later took that as she added the André onto her name. So kind of, we could just say it is.
Should be Nellie.
The Nellie Jacquemart. I know. Let's go in there with like spray paint. We'll just like change the signs.
You're coming in like a month.
I know. Yeah. Forget that. No way. But one of the paintings they got from that they outbid the Louvre for was a Rembrandt, and it is hanging. You could see it today, and it's a rather small one. It's called the Pilgrims of Emmaus, and it is hanging there, and you could just walk in there and see this Rembrandt hanging on the wall.
I'm just casual. I never have gone in there still, and I tried to go when things were open last year, and then we just showed up because we're like, it's a museum. We'll just walk in.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you have to pre-book because of COVID. And I was like, So then we went over to the Museum of Romantic Life.
Yes.
Romantique.
Well, we'll go when I get there in a few weeks. We'll go there because it's really, it's so awesome. I mean, they put on amazing exhibitions as well, which we'll get to, but just the house itself and to see the collection is pretty great. But on July 16th, 1894, old Edward died. The syphilis got to him. He died. And while the family originally wanted her to marry him and to take care of him, he had written his will, basically had it that all of his wealth and holdings would go back to his family.
Mm-hmm.
But a few months before he died, he changed it. So it all went
Whoa.
to Nélie.
That is so funny. Also, that's super unfair that they were like, here, just marry this guy with syphilis and we're not going to give you anything. Like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Yeah,
That's really crap.
Yeah, exactly. So, but she, in the end, they were not happy. They took her to court. They tried to sue her, but the court case was, she won. It was in her favor. And so, na.
Yeah, seriously. Wait, does that mean like he did care about? I mean, obviously they had some feelings, maybe.
I think so. I mean, if they both enjoyed art that much, I would think, I mean, I would love to meet somebody that loves art as much as I do, or would love to go to these museums like I do.
Or was a billionaire.
Well, yeah, or that. They already had their banking family fortune mansion for me to move into. If syphilis or not, I'd marry him.
Seriously. Sign that will over to me, man.
Exactly.
I'll look at some art together.
I know. Let's go pick out some art. But then I'd be like, just leave me alone.
That's called married life.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I think they probably did. I think there definitely had to be some sort of affection towards each other. Just because they did, he had redone some of the house. So he put in a studio for her, a painting studio. But when she got married, she put down her paintbrushes and never painted again.
Why?
Yeah, she just kind of moved on from that. And you could tell when you go into the house, when you go upstairs, you walk into this big room and it has a ton of Italian Renaissance objects and everything. And that was what would have been her former studio.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to show me when we go.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the tour. But in 1902, she kept traveling all over the place after he died. Now she has even more money. She kept traveling, kept collecting. In 1902, she was traveling around the world, looking for art. She had gone to the Indies. She was about to go to China and Japan when she got word that the Abbey de Shelley was for sale. And that was a place that she would go to as a child with Rose, with the wealthy family that, was taking care of her and her mother. And she had such fond memories of this place. She stopped her trip short and left and came back to France.
To buy an abbey.
Just so she could buy it. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, back then, how easy was it to change your ticket? I mean, now it's, you do it on your phone, but back then it was probably quite the ordeal.
Yeah, she was really dedicated to get back.
Yeah. So she came back and she purchased it because she had such wonderful memories of it. And it ended up going through a couple different hands before, between when Rose Vatry had it and when Nélie had it. The abbey dates back to 1137 and was built under the orders of King Louis VI, Louis the Fat.
Louis the Fat?
Yeah, that's what he is. His name was Louis the Fat. Isn't that
like terrible name?
I know. Well, and then Louis the 14th is Louis the Grand. Like they have these different names that they had. A lot of them. There was the Bref, the Short. Some of these other ones. But I mean, poor guy. Louis goes down in history as Louis the Sixth, the Fat.
That's my COVID name. Fat. She's been staying indoors too much.
Too much inside, yeah.
Love it.
It's just 40 kilometers north of Paris. We are definitely going to go there and visit it. It was consecrated in 1219. Over time, the medieval buildings were destroyed, and in the 18th century, it was added onto. There is a chapel there, the Sainte Marie Chapel, that is absolutely I'll put a link to their website because it is open. You can go visit, of course, because it's anytime you go to these places outside of Paris, they always have very strange hours. And usually they're open in the morning for 2 hours and they close for 2 hours for lunch. And then they open again.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So, but it was in 1850 that Rose Vatry had purchased the estate. She restored the chapel, and all of the frescoes. The castle that was there, she had it kind of redone into more of a home. And then she owned it until 1881 when it was sold off twice until Nellie got it in 1902.
Oh, sold off twice. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not that long. I mean, 20 years, 21 years. Been
Yeah.
sold twice. On May 15th, 1912, sadly, Nellie died. And she left both homes to the Institut de France.
Oh, because they never had any kids.
Yeah, they didn't have any kids. So she left everything to the Institut de France with specific instructions. I love it when they do this. Specific instructions following the details of her home and how the art should be displayed and must be followed.
Oh, interesting. So everything we see is exactly how she told them to do it.
Exactly, which I love because then you get even more of a sense of like when you go to that museum, you really are stepping into their life.
Yeah, it's so much more interesting. I mean, than just having a curator because it actually was her home.
Yeah, yeah. So 8 months later, in 1913, in December, the Musée Jacquemart André was opened and inaugurated with the president there, Raymond Poincaré, at the time, was there to inaugurate it.
Whoever that guy was.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he wasn't, he doesn't stand out in the history here. Yeah, but before her death, she had a tomb created that shows her lying kind of propped up on her side, holding a artist's palette. And she is buried in the chapel at the Abbey de Chailly.
So you can go visit her.
Yeah, we're going to go visit her. It's a really beautiful place. I can't wait. I was like, you're going to love to go there and take some pictures. The Jacquemart in Paris has amazing art from the Italian Renaissance. And that's like I mentioned about her atelier at the top. They have a bunch of bas reliefs on the wall and some statues. And then you go into this one room that's rather dark and has all of these amazing Renaissance paintings, where they're always religious and they're always like with a lot of gold. And it's really amazing. The museum does 2 different special exhibits a year, and they are on the small side, but they are so well done. And it's just the way it flows and the way they put everything together. It's always really interesting. There was one a couple years ago where it was these collectors that live in the U.S. now, and it was part of the collection they personally own. So you had these, golden Italian Renaissance paintings and going all the way up to the Impressionists, and it was fascinating.
I am so excited to visit this place. Like, it sounds beautiful. And how old was she when she died?
She was 70 years old.
Yeah. Long time, yeah, for that time.
She lived quite a long time. In their permanent collection, there's this, when you go inside and you're on the lower level, the ground floor, and you walk in and you kind of go through this, you walk in first to this beautiful, amazing room that's got busts and this kind of rounded window and overlooks, the front side of the house. And then you go into this little room, and that's where you find the Rembrandt. And a whole bunch of other paintings, including a Vigée Lebrun, which I was so excited when I first saw that. There's even a Jacques-Louis David painting.
Oh, wow. This is so cool.
Yeah. And they're just there on an easel. And it's not, it's so great to see that, because while my beloved Louvre, which I love more than anything, it's great to see those paintings there. But here it's like you could get even closer to it, and it's just right there. And there's also kind of a hidden little bathroom you could use right there.
Oh, you're giving out all the secrets around here.
Which is always great to figure out in Paris.
The secret bathroom.
Exactly. Yeah, the Abbey, though, was also turned into a museum. And between the 2 places, there's more than 4,000 pieces of art and objects and furniture that she had owned.
That's wild. I mean, for a woman of her time, it seems like she did okay for herself.
Yeah, it's awesome. But it's so interesting how the museum portrays their story, which it's not like it was horrible and scandalous what they did, but it harkens more on him, and that they had this great love affair when really it's mostly about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's typical.
Yeah.
Typical. The woman didn't do anything. She was just the romance piece.
Yes. But yeah, the Institut de France, which is, it's inside, of the building that's right at the end of Pont des Arts, with the Alliance Française in there and everything else. It is the Institut de France actually owns quite a few different chateaus and places around France that were gifted to them after these people died.
So basically, we need to be friends with the Institut de France.
Yes. Yeah. But we did get a seat there where they're fancy little, they wear these fancy little jackets. And then each one of them has a sword made. So once they take the position, they get this sword made and different artists created. And it was at which was Musée Milo Monet, that they actually had a bunch of them on display. And it's really fascinating. Like I had never seen those before. And like some of them have like, they're, gilded and have jewels on it. It's really fascinating.
I want to see the swords. I want a sword.
Yeah.
Why not?
You can take the sword and I'll find the billionaire with syphilis.
Yeah, exactly. We all have dreams, goals.
Dare to dream. Dare to dream.
Dare to dream. I'll make a vision board.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Claudine. And thank you guys for tuning in. And don't forget that every Sunday, Claudine does live virtual tours from Paris. And she gives you all this fun history as you look at Paris live from your home. It's all over Zoom. And she tells you all the facts as you walk around for an hour around Paris. And you can sign up for that on her website or her Instagram, ClaudineHemingway.com. And we hope you will tune in next week. Thanks, Claudine.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.